Hey everybody, I'm back here with another video. I just got a newer setup and a brand new PC, so I'm gonna start to record on this PC now, but this is my first video on here. I apologize for the long wait. I was training for a race, foot injury, and a few different things. So my plan is to record some different styles of MTG videos that I will be talking about shortly, and I will be using a face cam soon. But I wanted to make an update because in 2 days, so it'll be Saturday. I'm recording this on Thursday right now. I will be playing Talion the Slug Lord at Apex Gaming. I signed up for the event with a few friends, so I'm going to be going down there. So I wanted to go over my deck list, my thoughts, my ideas about it now, and then kind of a post tournament review of how the games went and different things like that. So I have my version also listed on my Mox field that is not underneath this. It's under King Pseudo Wudo. Um, but it's my actual Italian list. This is just the one that I used for Apex because you're allowed to use proxies. And originally my list didn't have proxies. So with that out of the way, we'll kind of talk about it. So if you don't know, Talion, Kindly Ward, 2 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black. It's a Fairy Noble 3/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. So it is important to basically decide which number you're going to pick. It's usually going to be 1 or 2. There are some circumstances with different decks that you would want to pick 3, but it's usually 2. That's usually the sweet number to go for. So Talion is not really a police deck, but sort of a police deck. It is kind of like a sluggy style deck that has a lot of responses, control, and different things that you can do to kind of drag the game out. So with that being said, we'll kind of hop into each section. I'll try to briefly talk about why the card is in the deck and what I think of it so far with what I've done. So Karn the Great Creator, 4 colorless. It's a Planeswalker, basically makes it so activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. And the other one that's kind of relevant is the +1. It's nice because if you turn a non-creature artifact like a Mana Crypt into a creature, it just instantly dies because it becomes a 0/0. But most of the time, it's there for that first ability, shutting off opponents' activated abilities of artifacts of your opponents is very good. It stops a lot of things, different things with Kinnan and a few other decks that are really important. Shuts off Soul Cauldron, being able to actually eat something. If they try to go for that, they have to wait until this is gone to be able to go for it. So that's basically what that's there for. We have 13 creatures in the deck. We have Gilded Drake, 1 in a blue. It basically comes in, exchanges control with another creature. This is really good to steal somebody's control piece or to steal something that's also sluggy. If someone has a Bowmasters, Shield Rid, or different things that kind of slug people, this is really nice. But also sometimes it just steals a Drannith Magistrate or a Ragavan or something if you need it to. Ledger Shredder's there for card draw. Opposition Agent is, obviously a gotcha card, able to stop people from searching their libraries. It's also nice because it can help us steal a piece that we can win with or steal something that'll be able to help us. Orcish Bowmasters, really big piece in this deck, combo piece and just really good in general. You can flash it in. It's a 1/1 for 1 in a black when it ETBs, or whenever an opponent draws a card except for the first one they draw in each of their draw steps. Orcish Bowmaster deals 1 damage to any target, and then you amass 1. So the big thing with this is it can go infinite with Hullbreak Horror, and it's also just very good to be able to flash out with a wheel on the stack or with a person trying to draw a lot of cards. This could be a really good card if someone's playing Blue Farm or if you're playing against a Niv Mizzet or different things like that. Phyrexian Metamorph is able to enter the battlefield as a copy of an artifact or creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact in addition to its types. This is also a pretty important win con because if you have Hullbreak Horror out, you can have this enter as a copy of someone else's One Ring, which will allow you to draw your entire library out by creating infinite mana with Hullbreak Horror loops, and then having this re-enter as their One Ring over and over, drawing your deck. Hullbreak Horror, of course, I'm using the Fallout version because I really enjoy the Fallout games. Flash can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up to one. You either return a spell you don't control to its owner's hand or return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So this is how you're able to kind of bounce back and forth some mana neutral, mana positive type rocks. And it's also just very good for being able to infinitely bounce other people's spells and do different things like that. It is just target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So if you need to, you can always get to a point where you just bounce everybody's things all back to their hand also. But this is really good with the One Ring and different things like that for being able to finish out the game. It is 7 mana, but our deck is not looking to win immediately. It is looking for the late game. Rug of Smothering. This is a card that I've been really high on in this deck. I don't see a lot of people running it, but I know that it's kind of on some people's radars. It's a 1/3 flying creature for 3. It's an artifact construct creature. And whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 1 life for each spell they've cast this turn. So this is really nice because Talion has some kind of restriction with based on the number. Orcish Bowmaster, people need to draw cards. Shieldred also has to do with people drawing cards. Rug of Smothering can really destroy a person's life total, especially if they decide to go for a counter battle. Our deck is not meant to be the police, but it is meant to kind of control the board in a certain extent. So if other people are countering spells and responding to things, Rug of Smothering really gets in there and starts pinging them for 1 or 2 damage, 3 damage on a turn. And if they cast 1 spell, that's 1. Second spell's 2. Third spell's 3. So I've had a few times now where I was able to drop Rug of Smothering with Talion out, and people will just cast 2 or 3 spells and instantly be down 10 life. It does a lot of good work. Sakashima the Imposter, 2 colors, 2 blue. It enters the battlefield. You may choose a creature in play. If you do, it becomes a copy of that creature, except its name is Sakashima the Imposter. It's still legendary, and it gains 2 colorless, 2 blue. Return it to its owner's hand. This can also help with different things. If someone else has a Bowmaster and you have Hullbreak Horror loops, you can have this enter as a copy of their Bowmaster ping somebody. So there are multiple ways to go infinite with this, and it's also just a very good value piece in general for entering as a clone. Shieldred, you know her, you love her, or you definitely hate her. I would assume you probably hate her. 2 colorless, 2 black. It's a Phyrexian Praetor, 4/5 death touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. This starts to widen that gap with the other decks very, very fast if they don't remove pieces. I have had 2 games so far where I've had Talion, Shieldred, and Rug of Smothering out, and I will tell you, it is a decent amount to keep track of, but it is very hard to overcome, especially if I start fighting for the spell over top, because sometimes when you're casting spells, I'm drawing cards. I'm also gaining life when I do that, but I'm also losing life. You, on the other hand, are probably losing more life than me. So very good card. Spellskite, 2 colorless horror, 0/4. You could pay a Phyrexian or a blue to change the target of a spell or ability to Spellskite. So this is really good if people are trying to remove something off of your board, if they're trying to target their own stuff, and different little things like that. Spellskite's able to redirect that. This is another one of those cards that kind of sits there on the board sometimes and doesn't do a ton. Other times, people completely forget that it even exists. So very, very good card. Subtlety is a flash free invoke card that allows you to choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell, put on the top or bottom of their owner puts on top or bottom of their library. So free interaction. Thassa's Oracle, not much to say there. Decon. Tasha's Tidebinder, 2 colorless, 1 blue, flash Merfolk Wizard, 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact creature or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tidebinder remains on the battlefield. So this is a gotcha card that permanently shuts off that card. It is very important to remember that you counter that ability, and then if it's a creature, artifact, or planeswalker, that permanent loses all abilities. So this is a very big gotcha card that can really shut a lot out. So that's the main part of the creatures. Sorceries are pretty simple, so I won't spend much time on them. Demonic Tutor, search your library, put a card in your hand. Imp Seal, search your library, put a card on top. Nomic Betrayal is the only one really worth mentioning too much. 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black. Exile all cards from an opponent's graveyard, from all opponents' graveyard. You may cast those cards. You may spend mana or mana of any color. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remain in exile, return them to their owner's graveyards, and then exile Nomic Betrayal. So the big thing with this is if you have, why am I forgetting the name right now? That's not good. Bloodchief Ascension online, you remove all those cards, they all go back in. As soon as those go to the graveyard, each opponent is going to lose 2 life for each of those that go to the graveyard, and you're going to gain 2 life. So this could be just a win on its own, especially lined up with Wheel or any other type of effect like that. Reanimate, put a target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield. You lose life equal to its mana value. This is one that not a lot of other decks play, but I think it's pretty decent. It is kind of a situational card in the fact that if somebody has some kind of graveyard hate or a piece like we have in this deck, like Grafdigger's Cage, then you can't really do much with Reanimate. But in general, it is a very strong card. I just want to make sure the recording was still working because this is the new setup. Time Twister. This is another one of those cards that I didn't ever play with because I didn't own it. But when I signed up for the tournament and I knew we were allowed to use proxies, I decided to throw it in there. This card is absolutely ridiculous. It is just a lot. Basically, what you're going to do is shuffle your hand and graveyard back into your library and then draw a new 7. It honestly doesn't sound like it does that much, but there are games where sometimes you just throw down a couple things in Time Twister and it resets the entire game. If you're able to do this on turn 1, it can literally just shut everybody out. But obviously the price tag is insane. Toxic Deluge, 2 colorless, 1 black. You could pay X life into it. All creatures get -X, -X. And then Windfall, everybody discards their hand, draws cards equal to the greatest number amongst players discarded this way. So that's all that is. We'll go through the instances. I'll try to touch on why I play some of them or what I think of some of them, but I won't go into great detail on the instance because they're all pretty straightforward. So offer, counter target non-creature spell to get 2 treasures. Cyclonic Rift, you know it, you hate it. Dark Ritual gets you 3 black. Deadly Rollick exiles a creature. It's free if you control your commander, which we plan on doing in this deck. Defabricate is one of the ones I've been trying out in this deck, and I really enjoy it. This deck really thrives on playing a little bit of niche cards, and this is, in my opinion, one of the best. 1 in a blue, you get a counter target artifact or enchantment spell. If a spell is countered this way, exile it instead, or you can counter target activated or triggered ability. So the ability to be able to counter target the ability to counter target artifact or enchantment spell and exile it is detrimental to some decks. Taking away Basalt Monolith from Kinnan and different things like that can really shut people out. Also, just being able to counter someone's Rhystic Study is really nice. So this card is versatile on the top, but the bottom part, being able to counter target activated or triggered ability, is also very useful. So this card, while being pretty niche at first look, always has some kind of use. Demonic Consultation, you guys know what that card does. Dispel targets counters target instant spell. Drown the Lock can counter a spell or destroy something based on the number of cards in their graveyard. Fierce, if you control your commander's free, counter target non-creature spell. Flusterstorm, counter target instant or sorcery spell. You get the storm count, and they have to pay 1 for each one of those. Force of Negation, you can pitch a blue card, counter target non-creature spell. Force of Will, you may pay a life and exile a blue card, counter target spell. Limdol's Vault basically lets you look at the top 5, pay a life if you don't like it, and do it again. Keep shuffling through, getting basically whatever card you want to be on top. which is really good for our commander. Obviously, you could do this in response to a draw, put the card you want right into your hand. Mana Drain, counter target spell, you get a bunch of colorless. Mental Misstep, blue or 2 life to counter target spell with 1 CMC. Mind Break, if an opponent's cast 3 or more spells, you may pay 0, exile any number of target spells. Very important to remember that it is if an opponent casts 3 or more spells. I've seen a lot of people try to play this when there hasn't been one opponent that has cast 3 or more spells. So you have to really watch out when you're playing cards like this. Misdirection, you can exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay its cost to misdirect a spell, changing the target of it. Mystical Tutor, search your library for an instant or sorcery, reveal it, put it on top. Pact, counter target spell, but you have to pay 5 at your next upkeep, 3 colorless, 2 blue. Rapid Hybridization, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. That creature's controller gets a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token. I played this one instead of the one that creates a monkey just because I have the Secret Lair version of it. Shieldred's Edict, for 1 and a black, you get to choose one. Either each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature, each opponent sacrifices a creature token, or each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. I didn't play this card for a long time until I got absolutely destroyed by it multiple times by someone just playing it on turn 2 and kind of wiping the board of important pieces. Spell Pierce counters target non-creature spell unless they pay 2. Spell Snare hits a spell with its 2. Stern Scolding hits a creature spell with power or toughness 2 or less. Swan Song hits an enchantment, instant, or sorcery, and they get a 2/2 bird. Oh crap, this is Tainted Pact. It's the other one that works with Demonic Consultation. I don't know why it put this one in there on its own, but it did. And then Vamp Tutor, search for a card, put it on top, lose 2 life. So as you can see, pretty versatile package right here. Artifacts were pretty much either ramp pieces, hate pieces, or imposter mech. So Arcane Signet, Chrome Mox, Felwar Stone, Jeweled Lotus, Soul Ring, Mox Opal, Mox Diamond, Mox Amber, Mana Vault, Mana Crypt, Lotus Petal, Talisman of Dominance. Those are all just straightforward mana rocks. Cursed Totem is activated abilities of creatures can't be activated. So this is really good for being able to shut off quite a few different commanders and activated abilities that are around, being able to shut off Tamir Sabertooth and different things like that as an example. Grafdigger's Cage, creature cards can't enter the battlefield from graveyards or libraries, and players can't cast cards in graveyards or libraries. So this is shutting out different things like Underworld Breach, and this is also stopping things that search for creatures and put them into play. Imposter Mech enters the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle, artifact, and loses all other card types. So this is really nice for copying a Dockside if you need some mana. If someone else has a Bowmasters, different things like that, just being able to copy it's really nice. You kind of have this in your hand and don't really know at the start of the game what you're going to do, but you will find something meaningful to be able to copy with this. My friend has Niv Mizzet, and he usually copies Talion with it. Other than that, we have the One Ring, which is obviously a giant combo piece for the deck and also just really, really, really good in general. Every time you cast it, you gain protection from everything until the end of your turn. It's indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on it. You tap, put a burden counter on it, and then draw cards equal to the number of burden counters. So the reason that this combos with the deck is it re-enters, you tap it, put a burden counter on it, draw a card, and if you Hullbreak Horror bounce it, it comes back in, you tap it, draw a card, put a burden counter on it, draw your entire library out. And then obviously, if you have every single counter spell in the world, there is many, many things you could do. You can also just go for a Thassa win, and if people go to stop it, then you could just play Bowmaster, bounce it, different things. So lots of options with that. Weathered Runestone is the big stacks piece for this deck. For 2 colorless, you get an artifact that says non-land permanent cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. So pretty similar to Grafdigger's Cage, but a little bit different. This is creature cards, and this is non-land permanents. So definitely a little bit wider of a range for 1 extra mana. Wishclaw, one colorless, one black, enters with 3 counters. You pay 1, tap it, remove a wish counter, give it to someone else. You can only do it as a sorcery. There's some different funny things you could do with this, being able to bounce it with Hullbreak Horror and stuff like that if you need to, but sometimes it's nice just to have a tutor to be able to do stuff with. Enchantments, straightforward. Again, not much to really talk about. Bloodchief Ascension is the big one, though. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life, you put a counter on it. Once it has 3 or more quest counters, then every time a card hits an opponent's graveyard, they lose 2, you gain 2. So very big slug piece for the deck. Copy artifact, 1 in a blue. It's going to enter as artifact on the battlefield. So again, this copies things like the One Ring, stacked pieces if you need to, mana rocks if you really, really need to, different things like that. Dress down, 1 in a blue, enchantment, flash, enters battlefield, draw a card. Creatures lose all abilities, and at the beginning of each end step, sacrifice this. So the reason that this card is in here, other than the fact that it is a good piece for stopping people, is if you go for Thassa lines, you need to make sure that you don't get screwed over by the fact that you have Talion. So you can actually, with the Thassa Oracle ETB on the stack, then play Dress Down, which shuts off your Talion, but you still have the Thassa trigger. Then after Dress Down enters, then you can decon and go for the win. That way, if you, I think it's decon or is it Tainted Pact? Name a card, remove the top 6. Tainted Pact is the big one then. If you Tainted Pact, people can make you draw over top of it and make you lose the game. I'm pretty sure this is the one. Exile top card library, you may put that card in your hand unless it has the same name as another. Repeat this process until you have none. Name a card, reveal the top 6, put that. It's decon then. You name a card and it keeps going, and then you never hit that card. And then they can play something for 2 over top of it, which will force you to draw from an empty library. Mystic Gamora, Ristic Study, make you draw. And then we have 28 lands that we play in the deck. There are other options. There's MDFCs and different things. This is just the current package that I'm running. So I'll only explain the ones that really matter. Cabal Pit, if you have Threshold, you can sack it to give a creature -2/-2. So in a pinch, it can help with removal. Cephalid Coliseum, if you have Threshold, you can sack it and force a player to draw 3, then discard 3, which can work with Shielded Out. It can work with them discarding 3 cards while Bloodchief is online. So pretty helpful card. Minamo can be pay a blue, tap it to untap target legendary permanent, which will untap the One Ring for you to retap it to draw more cards. Otawara can interact with people. And that is it. Everything else is just mana. So that's the basic feel for how this deck is. Usually you want to keep a hand maybe not as land heavy as this, but similar, where you can play a land and play Jeweled Lotus to be able to get Talion out on turn 1, which will start drawing you cards and allowing you to get things. It is good that you have a Tasha for later on, but it kind of sucks you're not able to play it now. It would depend on what you actually draw, which would be Deadly Rollick, which is not bad. You're keeping a Misdirection open, which is a situational counterspell, and you're keeping open removal. I'll just run through a couple choice hands, and we'll just kind of see what I think of them. Getting a Command Tower right here is really nice, depending on what colors. Exotic Orchard could also be mana fixing for you. Mana Crypt and Soul Ring being able to give you that fast mana is really nice. So this is definitely a keepable hand. This being able to give you Dark Ritual if you need to, counterspell, different things like that. But a turn 2 Talion is very nice. Plus you would draw Weathered Runestone right off the top. So if you would probably end up playing like a Command Tower, playing a Soul Ring, playing Mana Crypt, putting this on the battlefield to shut off somebody if you want to. So this is very, very nice. This, too much mana. It's kind of the downside with something like this. Being able to play a mana crypt and Vampire and stuff like that's nice. I don't think it's worth keeping though, just because if you're not going first, oh, I guess if you're not going first, you just get rid of a card in your hand. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is definitely a keepable hand. You gemstone, you can get rid of Swamp or City of Brass. It really doesn't matter for whatever you want. And then you're not going to have this in your hand, but you'll be able to play City of Brass, play Mana Crypt, Talion on turn 1. And then you get a Deadly Relic also, which would be very nice moving forward. So as you can see, these hands all have a similar thing in common. Talion needs to come out, interaction needs to be there. This hand doesn't have Talion coming out turn 1 or 2, doesn't have interaction. This hand, pretty decent. You have a Dark Slick and this, so you have the ability to play Rug of Smothering on turn 1, Phyrexian Metamorph on turn 1. This is definitely a keep. Unfortunate that we don't have another land, but you would be able to play this, probably play Rug of Smothering, scare some people off. It's probably the best bet, either that or you play this and play it slow, keeping open a Force of Will, and plan to not get a land, which you wouldn't have, so that you could play Talion on turn 2. Kind of unfortunate that that's the land, but it's a decent land, I guess. Unless I decide to remove it before the tournament, that is. And we'll just do one more for good luck. This hand is hot garbage, so we would go down. This hand is exactly what you want, so you would definitely be keeping this. This is turn 1 Talion with some mana production in the future, so you would keep it and hope that you get some lands out of the Talion stuff, which by the look of it, there's at least one giving you a rock, being able to play some more rocks in the future, curse tone, different things like that. So that's the basic gist of this deck. I'm sorry if this video is a little bit out of the ordinary for my normal, or maybe a little too ordinary for how they can turn out sometimes, but in the future I do plan on having a screen up and getting some editing software, being able to cut out me going to OBS and stuff like that, and being able to rebrand the channel a little bit and get more attention to the channel, hopefully. So I appreciate you guys watching the video. If you have any comments, any things, let me know. If not, I'll be posting the follow-up video shortly. So thank you guys.